This is Ran Silberman for All Israel News. And today we want to explore on the Temple Mount, are there any remains of the first temple of Solomon here? And that's a difficult question to answer, but we'll try. First of all, when you look around, everything you see is from the Muslim period, starting by the 7th century AD. For example, the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque. On the other side, the colonnades that you see around us, and even the floor, the tiles, are all from the Muslim. None of them are from the time of Herod. How do we know that there was a temple here? Where about Herod's temple, there's a lot of evidence. We have the Western Wall outside and many more. But the Temple of Solomon, that's more difficult. And we'll try to find today whether we have any real evidence for Solomon's temple. The mystery of the treasures of Solomon fascinated people through history. The Crusaders, they came here in the 12th century, they thought maybe they found them. So they were digging down and they found those stairs those are modern stairs, but existed even then. And you could see that you could go down to a hollow area just beneath the platform. And they call that area Solomon's stables. Why stables? Because it's written in the Bible that Solomon had great stables. But later on, archaeology found out that this is not from Solomon's time, this is from Herod's time, or even later. Today, the Muslims, they have big mosques underground here, and this place, nothing of Solomon was found there. At least until today. Maybe one day when we'll be able to excavate more, we'll find more of Solomon. But until now, not so much. So the question is, do we have evidence for Solomon's temple here? Yes, we might have something that you like to hear. You see the Dome of the Rock behind me. Now, on the other side, we have the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Dome of the Rock is called like that because it stands on a rock. Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is the real mosque here, Dome of the Rock is not a mosque. Al-Aqsa Mosque is standing on a very high construction that Herod built on hollow spaces. And here in Israel, there are many earthquakes. And every time there is an earthquake, this area here on the construction is collapsing, and the Dome of the Rock is not affected. So the Dome of the Rock is the same construction since it was built in the 7th century, but Al-Aqsa Mosque was destroyed 3 times at least. And the last time in 1927, this was in the time that the British were here, and it was very badly damaged. And 10 years later, in 1937, again an earthquake, and the British had to fix it and renovate it. And they helped the Muslims here to rebuild it. But when they rebuilt it, they had to take off all the material that was not used anymore, for example, cement, stones, and also some woods. So when the British helped in reconstructing and renovating, they found that some of those very long wooden beams, they had very beautiful carvings on them. So they took them to a new archaeological museum that was just built in the 30s here in East Jerusalem. You know, the British, they loved archaeology, they loved the land of Israel, and they founded a big archaeological museum with the help of the Rockefeller family in America. The Rockefeller family invested $2 million at that time in that museum. And you can visit this museum today and can see those beautiful wooden carvings that came out from here. But when they looked carefully, and even later on, people started to look, they saw that those carvings, they don't look like Muslim. They look like Byzantine, meaning they're earlier than the mosque, because Byzantine were here before the mosque. And that was a question. Maybe the Muslims used logs of woods and beams from the Byzantine period? That was a very interesting question. So the woods in the Rockefeller Museum with the patterns that resemble the Byzantine period are very similar to this stone that we see here. The same decorations you can see on wood, but also on stones, circles, and even here you can see there used to be a cross here that the Muslim, and this is a wall of the Dome of the Rock, so the Muslim used it here, removed the cross, and just used it as a beautiful decoration for the Dome of the Rock. And more than that, on one of those beams, they found inscription engraves in Greek. Well, Greek cannot be Muslim. It must have been from Byzantine or even earlier, who knows? And that's something that we wanted to check. So the British, they built the Rockefeller Museum, but in 1948, the British, they leave the country. And then who takes over? The Jordanians, because the Jordanians, they come and conquer East Jerusalem, and Rockefeller Museum, which is in East Jerusalem, is taken by the Jordanians, and they continue to keep it as their archaeology museum. They even put there the scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls that are found during the 50s. But then in 67, 19 years later, Israel conquers Jerusalem and East Jerusalem and the whole of Judea and Samaria and take over the museum. And then a great treasure of archaeology was found. Of course, the Dead Sea Scrolls, but also other things. For example, those wooden beams from Al-Aqsa Mosque. And then one scientist from Tel Aviv University, her name is Nili Lifshitz, she wanted to check, to examine in a scientific way what are those beams. So she took up more than 100 different pieces of wood that she found, some of them from the museum, some of them were here around, left in some piles. She examined, and indeed she found through carbon dating that most of them go back to the Muslim period, a few of them to the Byzantine period. But wait a minute, that's not all. First of all, she identified 3 species of trees. One of them, surprise, cedar of Lebanon. The other one, cypress tree, like this one. This is cypress tree. It's called cypress, by the way, probably because it was known from the island of Cyprus, but it grows in Lebanon as well. And the last one was Turkish oak. And all those 3 species of trees do not grow in Israel, but they grow in Lebanon. Interesting. But they're not very ancient. They go to the Byzantine period. But when she examined more and more with carbon dating, she found that some of the beams go all the way to the Second Temple, the first century AD, the time of Herod. So some of those beams are so old that they come from the time of Herod. Well, that's actually incredible. Do you believe that a wooden beam can sustain for 2,000 years? But that's not all. The real surprising thing was 2 beams. One made of cypress, like this one. One made of Turkish oak, were dated to the 9th or 10th century BC, meaning the Temple of Solomon. Can we say that those were in the Temple of Solomon? I don't know. So if we know that in the Bible, 3 types of woods were used to build Solomon Temple. The erez, which is cedar, the brosh, which is cypress, and another tree that is called almugim or algumim, which we don't know what it is. In modern Hebrew, they translated it to corals in the sea, but it's probably not the right translation. But now that we found just exactly 3 species of trees, cedar, cypress, and Turkish oak, all of them do not grow in Israel, all of them grow in Lebanon. So maybe those algumim, maybe there are the Turkish oak, but certainly cedar was found in this area, and cypress was found in this area dating to the time of the Temple of Solomon. That's certainly an evidence that something was here used by wood from the time of Solomon. And what did Solomon do with woods from Lebanon? Well, it's written, he built the temple. But our story doesn't end here. There is a continuation to be continued. Many of the beams that were taken out were just spread here all over the Temple Mount. At some point, the Waqf sold them to a timber merchant in East Jerusalem, an Armenian timber merchant, and he used them for whatever he used them, but some of them were left to remain there. And an Israeli guy named Ze'ev Erlich, or Zabo, known as Zabo, he's a very famous tour guide here, and he loves Israel, and he explored many things in Israel. He bought those beams and kept them in his home in the settlement of Ofra. And he couldn't do the carbon dating because that was too expensive for him personally. But he waited. And recently, about 2 years ago, he agreed with the Israeli Authority of Antiquity that they will examine this, and he gave it to them, but they didn't yet examine. Our story doesn't end here. Zabo went into Lebanon in November 24 and was killed by Hezbollah ambush there. And that was a very tragic story, but it also brought into the attention that story of those beams. And hopefully, very soon, the Israeli Antiquity Authority, they will carbon date them and we'll have some more interesting result that we all wait to hear. So you see, a mosque, an earthquake, some laboratory and science, and all this brings us to evidence, very concrete evidence of the temple of the time of Solomon.